wrestling science. Arm wrestling science. Science for arm wrestling. 98, 98, 98, 98.
That's about as awkward of an intro as you can get.
Yeah, I think we should. I think we should poll our audience on whether they like the
as
intro.
awkward of an intro as you can get. Oh my god!
Yeah, I think we should. I think. Yeah, but anyway, so welcome, greetings. Here we are. I am joining the two normal, well, quote unquote normal, co-hosts for this, Hollywood Matt Connelly and Ryan Gronin for the talk with John Brown. And the reason I am on, as you can see, John's already John. He fools you. That's what do they call that? What do they call it? Not hidden fitness, hidden. Whatever. When the guy that looks perfectly plain until he pulls his sleep up and flexes. I'm not sure what
secret weapon.
Whatever. But anyway, point of the matter is that I am in the same practice group, Team Predator, in Allentown, Pennsylvania, with John.
Oh my goodness.
John joined us in the spring of 2018, and when he came to town from Minnesota at that time, he said, "I like to practice 4 days a week." And he was not talking lifting, he was talking table time. And we did actually practice 3 times a week for a while. And we are now, we kind of dropped back to 2. But I'll tell you, we've, as John can assert, we probably only missed 2 practice sessions in the last 3 years, well, since COVID, because we're there all the time. But John recently represented the United States at the WAF Worlds in Chisinau, Moldova, if I pronounced that correctly, and got to talk to a lot of the foreign teams as to how they train and how they practice. And that essentially is, I think, going to be the main thing we're going to be talking about tonight, although he may also spend some time telling you how it is that I've been arm wrestling for 7 years and still suck so bad. But anyway.
That's a science on its own.
So Ryan, you want to take it away?
That was worse than the song intro.
Oh God, I wouldn't go that far. Absolutely not.
Well, John, tell us a little bit about your trip over there, like why you went there and how that came to be.
Yeah, so qualified at USAF Nationals to go, and I really was not planning to go to WAF this year, and there was an open slot, and basically Megan just got in my ear saying, you should go. You should really go. So got out of Nationals really injury-free, and there was really no reason not to go other than just, I just didn't feel like doing it. So I said, sure, I'll go. Why not? Give me the slot. So went there. The event itself was awesome. It was absolutely incredible. Everything was so structured, so well put together. Going back a couple of steps, I got there the day before weigh-in, so it was a long travel, and I couldn't eat or drink anything because I had to make 75 kilos, so I had to make 165. Go to weigh-ins, and they tap me on the shoulder and say, "You've been selected for doping control. You have to go with us."
Of course you were selected.
Yeah. So I said, that's fine. You're going to have to give me like a case of water in 2 hours because there's no way I'm producing your sample right now. So they said, yeah. So they handed me a case of water and they said, sit down and we just can't let you leave.
Yeah.
So I watched a bunch of countries come through that were selected. I think when I was in the room, it was me. So we had USA, we had Mexico, South Africa, Kazakhstan, Iran, India, and maybe another country too. But it was very interesting to see that taking place. It truly did seem random. So
did anyone selected seem to be on steroids, or was it mostly natural people?
Oh, I mean, I guess we'll have to find out, but
Yeah, when the test results get back.
Well, yeah. Well, if you look back on previous test results, a lot of countries that do, test hot are Eastern Europe. A lot of Kazakhstan's on that list, Russia.
Yeah.
So I saw Kazakhstan in that room. So it certainly I've seen people comment to me or have told me in person, like, oh, they, randomly selected you. And it's like, no, I actually think it probably was random.
Yeah.
And the process was super professional. It didn't seem weird or shady whatsoever. I talked to them while I was sitting there. Obviously, we didn't just stare at each other. And I said, have you guys been here all week? Because by the time the senior classes start, the juniors have gone, the masters have gone, the para, the disabled classes have gone. So we're the last ones.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you guys been here all week? And they go, yep.
Wow.
This is considered out of competition testing for you, but we grab people in competition too. So I was like, okay, cool. Going into the event, every day the event started at 10 a.m., which was awesome. There wasn't a lot of waiting around. There wasn't a lot of sitting around. There wasn't a lot of time to get nervous and all that kind of stuff. And they gave you an idea of when your class was going to start. It was never right. It was never right. But because it can't be, right? Like, you have these huge classes.
Tough. Yeah.
There's no way to predict it for real, but
right.
They give you an idea. So like when the classes started at 10, my class, they said, was going to start at 11:30.
Yeah.
So there was at least an hour and a half where I didn't have to sit there going, are they going to call me? Are they going to call me?
That's nice.
And they never called anybody to the table. Everything was done on a screen.
Okay.
The entire back wall of the event was a screen. So that makes a big difference. You can actually read what you're doing. And I think it was either 3 or 4 classes ahead you got to see. So you could really tell if you were coming up.
Yeah.
And if there was a protest, you added another 5 minutes until you had to go up.
Yeah.
And the protest system was super cool too. Like, it was probably 50% the protest was denied, but it was a really, really good system. And they did overturn about half the calls from what I could tell.
Wow. Jimmy Fuller said, "What's up, John?"
Oh yeah. Yeah. Team Predator.
So just for people who don't know what the protest system is, can you just explain that you're putting a certain amount of money down before your match as a bond kind of thing?
Yeah. So if you call a protest, you have, I believe it was 50 euros to make a protest. And what happens is, if they overturn the call, so if they say you're right, that was incorrect, they give you your money back. If they say protest denied, sorry about that, they keep the money.
They wave the money in your face.
Yeah, it's a nice incentive to make not every single match a protest. But I will say that, it was about 50-50 from what I could tell. And like Team USA, we made a protest. Jeff Hale got a foul and a losing position call that I was screaming from the back of the room, no, that was not good. That was a bad call. And they reviewed it and said, you're right, get back up there.
Yeah, you're also a ref too, so I'm sure that helps.
Well, yeah, and so it's nice too, the protest system for referees, because referees, there's always a piece of you that sees the call and you want to make a call, and then if it's kind of 50-50 on whether that really was what you saw, you don't have to worry about that there. You make the call, and if you have a problem with it, go protest. So it's nice because it makes, I think it gives a lot of power to the referees to make the call that they really, really, truly saw and believe it was right. And it really did work out for quite a bit of people.
That's awesome.
And it was fast, man. They ran 8 tables, and there was a lot of athletes in there. And the day would start at 10, and they'd be down to the semifinals by like 2:00.
Wow. When you were watching it, did you find it hard to keep track of the action that was going on, because there was 8 tables? I know we had an event here over the top 2, and there was, I think, 6 tables. It was either 4 or 6 that were running at the same time. And there were so many matches that I was like, oh, I want to see that. I'm watching, and then they're getting set up, and then on the table next to it, there's some other match that I want to see as well. And it's like, oh, but I want to see that one as well. And then it's like, okay, all right, they've slipped. All right, cool. I'm watching this one. And it's like, all right, now they've slipped. You know, and you're trying to sort of get your attention on one of the tables, and you miss the bloody match because you're looking at that one. And
yeah, if I were a spectator trying to enjoy a show, it would have been very difficult to do that. You know, because you got top 2 in every country on every table. They're all pretty good matches. You know what I mean? Like, everybody there knows what they're doing on the table. From my perspective, I was so wrapped up in what I had to do, I didn't really notice much.
Yeah.
But, you know, even from a streaming perspective, I know that they were streaming tables individually, but that's a nightmare at home. You know, like, you can see a table, but there's 8 tables. So you're not going to have 8 streams going.
the Drew would have.
Yeah. There's 4 cameras at each table.
And of course, since you were on at 11:30 a.m., it was like 4:30 in the morning with us, and so wasn't the greatest for spectating from at least the Eastern time zone of the United States.
No, and you know, what are you going to do? I suppose it's.
Although we knew in advance. Megan was very loyal at telling everybody this is when he's going to be on.
Yeah.
4:36 a.m. or something to that effect.
Yeah, she knew when the table was set up sometimes before I did when I was over there. So it was really, it was pretty convenient for me.
She's telling you.
What was it like when you walked up for your first match?
Yeah, so it was, me and Jeff Hale talked about it beforehand, to try just to try not to think too much about what was going to happen, because the truth of it is that you had some absolute killers in every one of these classes that people never heard of.
Yeah.
And not that people never heard of necessarily, but you know, they're not on YouTube, they're not on these bigger shows, but they're just as talented and they're just as dangerous. So there's really no need in worrying about it. Like,
yeah,
if you're going to sit there and worry about what's going to happen for your your first match, or who's in the class, like, they're not going to drop out because you're worried about it. So we just said, like, we know how to arm wrestle, so we're just going to arm wrestle the best we can. So when I went up there for the first match, of course, you're going like, you know, what if I'm just so terrible I can't even compete here, all that. And then as soon as they said go, I pulled a gentleman from Spain, and I felt both of our hands were somewhat equal. And I went, oh, okay, I'm in the match. I'm here. And then from there, I felt pretty good. I felt fine. And, but yeah, getting that, just that first go out of the way, it really helped quite a bit. Yeah.
How did it go?
Jody Williams real quick said, good to see you, John Brown, back on a podcast show.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, how did it go for that first one? So you felt the hand, it felt about even. Did you guys end up slipping, or was there a pin off that first one?
Yeah, so they said go the first time, and I believe we slipped and he elbow fouled. So they were very, very, very strict on every single rule you can think of in arm wrestling, right? So the big difference I felt, I didn't feel the elbow fouls were so much of a difference, because, you know, elbow fouls are kind of like black and white in a way, but they were super, super picky about squared shoulders. All of that stuff was super, super picky. But yeah, first go, we slipped. He fouled. The second go, I think I fouled. Third go, he just dumps his wrist and we finally slip. They walked away, the refs did, and I thought they were going to call him for an intentional slip. And they came back and said straps. And I said, okay, that's fine. And then we went to the straps, and when they said go there, I top rolled and I was able to pin.
Awesome. So went off to the blocks. You're away.
Yeah, that was nice. And, you know, and it was nice too, because he was a pretty skilled guy. He tried to top roll me first, hooking me second, and he flop us the third. So this guy threw everything he possibly could at me, and I was kind of there for it. So I said, okay, like, I'm strong enough and I'm awake enough. So let's do this, because I had never competed trying to get over jet lag like that.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't a factor, which was nice.
Well, we had seen the very strict refereeing at the USAF at the Nationals. Now, would you say this was the refereeing there, as far as strictness, was equivalent or even more strict?
I would say it was more strict at WAF. Yeah, if I had to compare the two, for sure.
What do you think comparative wise, like that compared to the a little bit of a looser rule setup? Are you in more favor of the really strict style setup, or do you prefer a bit looser?
I personally like really strict rules. So, like, I saw a lot of people struggling over there with super squared shoulders. Like, it was really messing up their setup, because in a lot of areas you don't have to do that. Like, fairly squared shoulders are pretty okay in most places. There, like, if you weren't a straight line, they were not starting the match. And if you didn't do it enough time, like after a couple warnings, they warned you. Like, they gave you a warning. Like, they weren't messing around at all. I personally like stricter rules, and mostly because we call ourselves professionals, especially like in these in the leagues like East versus West, King of the Table. These guys who are extremely talented, have been around for a really long time. They absolutely deserve to be up in that stage. But if we're going to call ourselves professionals, the rules of arm wrestling are pretty simple. Now, I don't think all the rules of arm wrestling are necessarily as important as others. Like, I think elbow fouls are more important than squared shoulders. I don't think setting up like this versus setting up like this is going to make any difference at all. I don't. But if there are rules in place, we should be able to follow the rules in place. You know, when I was 8 years old, if I stepped out of bounds playing basketball, they gave the ball to the other team. And I didn't say like, well, I was only a little bit out of bounds. No, I was out of bounds. It's just straightforward. And every kid I played with understood it.
Yeah.
So I kind of think that the professionalism and what's actually really cool about being a spectator outside of the sport watching it could be that I can't imagine having that much speed and force and be able to stay on a 7x7 pad. That's why we're professionals. You should be able to do that.
Right.
Yeah, I guess there's that question of for it to be successful with the mainstream audience, you've got to sort of make it as appealing as possible. We've got that argument there, you know, is the really strict setups and fouls and everything entertaining? And would it be something that a lot of people would be interested in watching?
Yeah. Yeah, and that is a struggle. There's no doubt. But I can tell you, I'll give you a good example. John Brzenk versus Angerbayev. There weren't any fouls in that match. I mean, in those two, like John, obviously John's the best that's ever lived. So we know the professionalism there. Angerbayev, technically speaking, might be the best we have right now. That dude can arm wrestle any position, fast, slow, wherever you want it. And he's in these matches that are incredible, absolutely incredible, and they're clean. Even with him and Todd Hutchings when they pulled and Todd beat him, like I think there might have been a couple of fouls, but it was as exciting as match as you could ever find, and there was no fouls. So I think it becomes really difficult for the public to digest when someone's trying to get way more than they're supposed to before they go. And if someone just cannot follow the rules once they say go, you know, I think at that point it becomes very difficult. Like, what are we watching here? Like, why is this person just won 3-0 and it took 45 minutes? That's hard to live with. Like, that's very difficult to live with.
I mean, that annoys us, let alone someone that doesn't know what's really going on.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you look at like Todd and Angerbayev, and their entire match maybe took 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, and it was a barn burner. Like there was a complete war. It's just there wasn't a lot of bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing that really annoys me, the biggest thing I think needs to be changed is the people that they're losing, and then they go, "Oh, I'll just lift up my elbow and I'll get a restart."
Yeah.
It's like, how is that fair?
That's irritating.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, back when I started, we had a organization in the U.S. called AAA.
Yeah.
And an intentional foul in AAA was an immediate loss.
That's
you
what
didn't see that stuff as much when you know you're going to lose if you do that.
That's what I'm thinking. Like an intentional slip, maybe an intentional elbow foul should be the same.
Yeah,
we've got that written into the AWE rule set.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, it's we call it a professional foul. If you foul in to escape a loss, it's a loss.
Gotcha. That's good.
Yeah, I mean it's equivalent to a forfeit to me. You're
Right.
saying you don't want to pull anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest example of that really annoyed me was the Levan and Hermes match when Hermes had worked so hard to get those stops, and he was holding with everything he had, and then he started to turn it around, get his shoulder behind, he starts pushing back towards the middle, and Levan's like, "Oh, I don't like this. I'll just elbow foul and get a restart." It's like,
That's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was frustrating. But what about in terms of throughout the event, compared to like a normal, more relaxed rule set? Did you notice there was more fouls, less fouls at this event?
Oh yeah, I would say there's more fouls for sure. Yeah, there were fouls called that you wouldn't have ever seen at a normal event. And then they'd put it up on the big screen, you could see it, and it was a foul, but it was like, it was like a little tiny. Some of the contributors to that were the tables. The elbow pads were like blocks of wood with leather on them.
Wow.
There was almost no pad. Like if there was just a little bit more pad, I think you would have seen a lot less fouls. They were very, very stiff.
Have you seen the Mac the Mac tables at all? Have you had a look at those?
I think are those like indented.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had one at Winter Blast, right? Ryan?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I pulled on it. I thought it felt fine. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I definitely could see how it could prevent, King's moves a little bit, and although it is a much bigger area, like I feel like you can get a lot of a lot of running.
It certainly would help someone who likes to sweep to the side. That's for sure.
Right.
I know that it was Ian Carnegie was looking at doing a redesign because when they ran their first event, he didn't realize that there was some ability for people to be able to lean their arm on the edge of the wall, like how it ramps because it comes up on the slope, and they were sort of resting against that. And he was like, "God damn it, I didn't know people could do that until this event."
He actually made a rule to prevent that now. Like if you rest on it, you get a warning. You have to get off it. If you don't get off it, then you could get fouled.
You get hit in the back of the head with a chair from Ian.
Yeah. When I first saw that table, I was like, wow, that's a cool 2-man poker table.
Dave, have you seen those tables?
Yeah. I don't know that I've been on them, but yeah, I was, of course, at Winter Blast, and I'm trying to think if it was at any of the other events.
You had it at Knuckles Up after pull one time too.
Oh. Yeah, I think that was the one. Was that the first one? Because I didn't get to possibly, but yeah, no, and you're absolutely right as far as dragging things out though. To get back to that, because we had some very, very good matches at Knuckles Up recently, but we also had some that the average non-fan, if that would have been the first match they were looked at, they were just snoozers, went on for a half an hour, and there were people we were interested in because we knew the people, and I'm not going to name names here, it was people we knew well, but it just went on and on and on and on and on, and I, kidded the one guy about the refs were getting paid by the hour.
I thought they were going to start the competitors in an elbow foul. I mean, it was a lot of elbow fouls, and we were like, come on, this is out of hand. I think the Knuckles Up guy actually went up there and had to tell him to ease up a little.
So anyways, John, as you told us when you came back to the States, some of the nationalities, you spoke specifically the Bulgarians and some of the others, put our amount of training or our frequency of training to shame.
Oh, yeah. So I've known for a little while that particularly the Bulgarian method it actually stems back from the 70s and 80s, I believe, in Olympic weightlifting. So the Bulgarians developed a method back then where they said, we're not going to do any kind of accessory movements or lifts or anything for weightlifting. We're just going to make our guys weightlift maximal effort multiple times a day until they either break or become a champion. That's what we're going to do. And there's a documentary on YouTube. You can look it up. It's an extremely interesting documentary because you get a really good look inside of what at the time everybody thought these guys were just machines and they didn't feel anything. Like they were just like, these guys are just incredible. And then you see them as humans as they're training going like, I can't tell coach my wrist is hurt. If I tell them my knee's hurt, he just says, it's okay. Lift it anyway. Yeah, they just didn't care.
Yeah.
The coach was named Ivan Avajev and they nicknamed him the Butcher because he was just ruthless. He'd take 100 guys, he'd get 5 out of and he'd be like, that's fine. They're the 5 best. But it was just a methodology that's just as hard as you possibly can, doing exactly the thing that you're supposed to do and nothing else. Your body will adapt. That's the mindset. So I believe that the Bulgarian arm wrestling team, from what I understand, does that for short periods of time. So when there's not as much going on over there, they do a lot more weightlifting and what they consider a little bit of table time, which is twice a week. For Americans, like twice a week consistently is a lot.
Yeah.
So they consider that a little. And then as it gets closer to competition, like say Europeans or WAF or something like that, they go to a system where all they do is arm wrestle. And they do it multiple times a day, a lot of times a week. And from what I understand, it's not always full intensity. There's drilling, there's, it's intelligent training. But they basically try to take this big bucket of work that they've done and really just funnel it into specifics, being super specific for the sport we're in.
Yeah.
And, the Bulgarians are amazing. Not just strength wise, but they're technically amazing too. Krasimir is as good as it gets. Jordan, we just saw him at Knuckles Up. He's unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
And, talking to a lot of these teams and some of the coaches over there, because that's another thing too. I get drug tested and they say, who's your team doctor? And I'm like, nobody.
Dave Shell.
Yeah, David Shell, Dr. David Shell. And then they said, who's your team coach? And I'm like, we don't have one of those either. I go, do they? I had to pause the guy. I'm like, do they actually have team coaches and doctors here? And they said, yeah. Jesus. And then you walk into the room and you can see the coaches. And it's like, it's inspiring, to be honest, because it's just super cool to see like athletes getting treated like athletes by their country. But talking to some of those coaches and stuff, you start to see that the mindset of, Kazakhstan, Bulgaria, Georgia, these countries is that they want to be strong. And then you learn how to arm wrestle, or then you know how to arm wrestle. But strength is a big, big, big. It's the very top of the priority list. Whereas I'll say America, but probably just North America mostly, is more like we need to be good arm wrestlers, but like you don't really have a great foundation of strength. And this year, like since I've come back to the sport, I've been really, really trying to dedicate a lot of time to finding a training program that really emphasizes power and strength while you're able to arm wrestle. Because those are two different. It's a very difficult thing to do at the same time if you don't do it correctly. And speaking with them over there and understanding how they prioritize strength training on the table and building a better foundation through like hypertrophy and work capacity and that kind of thing. I literally was so inspired that I wrote my new program that I'm running right now while I was in my hotel room over there. Because me and Jeff Hale were at lunch just going like, oh my God, like, I think we can actually do this. I think we can, like, if we were to compile this kind of list together and like a real program that newer arm wrestlers could start from scratch and like build a real solid foundation of strength and then learn how to do things more effectively, over time, we could absolutely be in that same conversation as a lot of those guys over there. We could. It's just, I think it's going to take a bit of a reset and some information.
And that's why we had you on today.
Obviously, you're not your most recent thing you're still working on, but am I correct that some of your training videos and your podcasts on the Hand Control Worldwide are still up there? Are they not? Or am
Yeah, I post multiple times a week at this point. I post my full training week every week, and then I'll put like little highlights up. But yeah,
So
at
now
this
your
point,
videos are going to change.
well, no, not really. It's not too far off from what I've been doing.
Oh, okay.
So when I first came back, and I've been really like focused on strength. For the first chunk, I would say probably like 4 to 5 months. I was really just trying to get my max effort power up, because I had a really good foundation from my previous arm wrestling life.
Yeah.
And then when I took a few years off, a lot of it stayed. And a lot of it was just building back up the muscle memory, making sure, just getting some of the muscle back, getting some of the connection back, a little bit of conditioning. The conditioning didn't go that far, but I didn't really have like a great way to make sure that I was widening my base, like getting some more muscle growth, getting a bit better work capacity that you could then funnel into strength later. And I really didn't understand like what your body needs and when it needs it, in terms of the type of training you give it and when you give it. So I've been just studying literature and studying other strength sports, just to find out like, what are we doing here? Like, how can we make all of this happen at once? Because other sports seem to have been able to do it. Weightlifting in the Olympics is a good example. I think they're actually the closest example to arm wrestling, because it's a skill with as much force as you can produce, as fast as you can produce it. Powerlifting is not a bad base, but it's just a little different than what we do, because we need to be a bit more accurate than powerlifters, but we can't deny that powerlifters are super strong. So we got to listen to some of that. But what I started to find was, when you start to look at these programs that are very well proven, the German volume method is very proven. Bulgarian method is proven. West Side Barbell, conjugate system. These things are all really, really good programs. But when you start to look at the evidence and the studies and all these things that went through, all these studies and these evidence-based, outputs are with performance enhanced athletes. And I don't want to be judgmental, like, do what you want to do, I don't care. But if you don't want to go down that road, well, what can we do to train that way? Because sometimes, especially if you're not conditioned to arm wrestle and you want to start trying to do arm wrestling lifts in that kind of intensity, you'll be just one big ball of tendonitis before you know it.
That's the hardest part, is to balance what you do in the gym and then what you can do at practice. Like,
sure.
if you go hard in one, you kind of lose it in the other, and vice versa.
Right. And the thing is, I don't know if that's avoidable. Like, I think no matter what, you're going to run into that.
Yeah.
But what you do when you do it is important. And like, what I started to understand and what I started to see in every single sport that has to do with strength is that your body needs as much energy as it can possibly get to get stronger. So if you have strength, it's like strength training, and I'm talking like low reps, high intensity, you need all the energy you can possibly get. Pain is another thing too. Like, you might have all the energy in the world, but if it hurts too much, it's not going to go like how you want it to go.
Yeah.
But energy wise, you need as much in the tank as you can get.
How have you found that since you've introduced these changes, has it changed your game or your strength levels or everything on the table?
Yeah, I can definitely feel a difference on the table. It hasn't really changed how I arm wrestle. Maybe a little bit right-handed. I just seem to have a bit more versatility there. My left arm's a one-trick pony. I had shoulder surgery back in 2017, and inside it just doesn't work the same way as outside does. I still play with it and I still build it, but it's just not the same. So like, my left and right are a bit different, but for sure, can feel a difference on the table. And not just from like a one rep, like super hard pull viewpoint, but being able to pull moderately for way longer. Recovery is way better. you know, I can have a hard match in practice and then 30 seconds later, I'm good to go. I'm fresh. Like, we're good. But it's just because if you have enough training volume and your body's used to doing something all the time, well, it gets used to recovering pretty quick too.
Yeah, John and I will be celebrating surgery, the 7th anniversary of Surgery Day on the 23rd October. He had his shoulder put back together in Minnesota. I got my arm put back together in Pennsylvania on the same exact day before we met each other.
Oh, that's crazy. I mean, Ryan has joined the surgery club as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Are you still wearing the
club,
sling,
isn't it,
Ryan?
Ryan? Isn't it a good club to be in?
It's terrible. I think I need another one. It's not good.
Another surgery?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I know.
When do you find that out?
They got to do an MRI. But
oh God, that's what got
basically when they were in there the first time, they were gonna cut the tendon that goes over your shoulder that holds your bicep up and attach it to the bone. But when he was in there, he said it had fallen back into place, so he decided not to do it. And I think it fell back out of place. And I'm like, oh, so now he may have to go back in to do that, which is kind of annoying.
Yeah.
Then he's going to go back in and it'll put falling back in place again when he gets back in there.
Yeah.
That's how he's making his money. He just keeps racking. Oh no, we'll just go again.
Yeah, like, dude, another come on, man. Ridiculous.
Well, I mean, you said you're over. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, I was just say Dan Plexman said he's president of the surgery club. Yeah, that's the international one too. That's not just the Canadian one. But,
yeah, absolutely. What was I going to say? But so you're over there with Jeff Hale. He's known for his explosiveness and just crazy speed and everything like that, and just incredibly powerful too. Has he implemented the same sort of changes in his training that you had, or is this something very separate that's just very specific to what you've come up with?
As far as I know, he has not. I did tell him. So I wrote my new program and I said, hey, listen, I'm going to run through this because my program I have right now is like a 3-week wave. I said, when I get through the first 3 weeks, I'll let you know, because I might get through a week and a half of this and say it's way too much. Like, who knows? Like, you don't know. So I said, if I get through 3 weeks, I'll send it to you and let you know what I'm doing. But I know that the way he trains, he has a lot more general training, muscle building, general lifts. I never had those things. And that's been the biggest change for me, is actually just trying to have a bigger base of like general fitness. Everything for me was super specific. And that's been the biggest change. There's a little bit of speed work in there, and there's a little bit of static work. I've always done isometrics, but really just trying to get generally stronger, and then trying to funnel that into specific stronger, and just kind of loop through those things. If you time things right and you do things in the right order, you can train a lot and still be pretty recovered. Like, my training program right now is 13 sessions a week.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
it's just my afternoons are they're not very intense.
And you also practice twice a week.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So the only time
once
I take
a week
off
for me.
Sunday evening is the only time I take off.
Wow.
Outside of like just saying like, I am so broken down, I need a whole day. But I mean, honestly, it just doesn't really happen unless I'm sick or something. But yeah, right now it's the only time I take off is Sunday afternoon.
We had Devin Larratt come out, which was actually the first time I had arm wrestled. He was coming around doing seminars. He was talking about his training methods and stuff back then. And one thing that stuck out to me, even though I had no idea what he was talking about because I'd never arm wrestled before at that time, was that he had like a towel that he would wrap around just any pole wherever he was staying, and he would just grab that and just do static resistance lifts against it. But he was doing it like 6 times a day. So he would just do that, every couple of hours. He'd go grab the towel, wrap it around, and just do a few reps of that. Which was quite interesting that he found results from consistently doing the same thing. He wasn't looking to He said, I wasn't going like 100%, wasn't going hard to where I was trying to tear the muscle fibers or anything like that. I'm just getting resistance in that position just regularly every couple of hours.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And the thing is, like, certain training, like isometric training, where you're pulling against something that you can't move. Whether you give it 100% because you feel real good and you can, or if you're giving it 80%, that is real work. And it's real work in a specific spot for a specific thing. And, you know, for like soft tissue manipulation and hardening and conditioning, like, which is what we're looking for here, that's why isometrics are so beneficial. And it's also one of the reasons why when you're brand new, if you have somebody at practice that you can sit there and just grind in the middle of the table with, you'll get stronger really quick. Because it's actually damn near perfect for what we do. The problem is when that stops working. Because there needs to be something behind the tendon and the ligament. And that's where the difficulty starts. Is how do I grow that? And then I go back to what I was doing before. And then how do I grow it again? Because everybody has a limit. And if you're not real smart about it, you'll hit that limit really fast and it just becomes frustrating.
And then you take trend.
And then you take, exactly.
As much as you can in one go.
It certainly helps, Ryan. No more shoulder surgeries for us.
That's what I hear.
Oh man, yeah, I knew a guy that he said that he was on trend for a year straight, and then he ended up having a heart attack, and then his parents got really pissed off at him, and it all turned into a big problem. But yeah, I couldn't believe it when he said that.
That's crazy. Isn't that usually when like they freak out and kill someone?
Well, I think it was designed to make cattle bigger. So if that gives you an idea of what you're not supposed to do.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you say that, you know, adding the strength and the power building stuff is really sort of added to your game. I think Ryan Bowen had discovered or had thought about similar principles in the last probably 2 years. So he hooked up with the strength coach that works with Hafthor Bjornsson, the world's strongest man, the mountain from Game of Thrones. So Ryan ended up getting in contact with his powerlifting coach, and then he followed a program for, I'm not sure if he's still doing it, but he did it for probably a year and added in a lot more functional strength movements, you know, bench presses, overhead press, squats, deadlifts, you know, all the traditional powerlifting kind of movements. But he said that it helped tremendously in terms of his overall structure, his frame, and his ability to get in certain positions on the table.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, there's nothing. It sounds simple to say, and it sounds like almost obvious, but it's never a bad thing to be a stronger human being in a strength sport. Period. And like, especially if you understand and know how to arm wrestle, that's the difficult part, and that's the part that everybody tackles super hard because, and that makes plenty of sense. Like, arm wrestling is very difficult. It's hard to teach somebody to grab a hold, close their hand, curl their wrist, pronate, and drag back at the same time. It's like, it can be frustrating to teach somebody that, because it's like, if you do it for long enough, you're like, how can't you do this? And then they're like, how are you doing this? So people put so much weight into that, which makes plenty of sense, but man, you got to be strong too. Like, you do have to do that part. And that part, it's just difficult. And when John Brzenk came out and said, and I believe him 100%, that all I do is arm wrestle. I just arm wrestle like once a week, and I go to the gym and lift like one set of 12, and I call it a day. And everybody's like, how is the best ever like that? You know what I mean? And so a lot of North Americans are like, well, that's what I'm going to do. And then in 6 months, they're like, why am I still in the amateurs?
Yeah,
I should be the best that's ever lived right now.
Right.
But it's like, no, you know, if you're not the best, if you're not John Brzenk, you're going to have to go lift weights, and you're going to have to go get strong, you know, because even some of the training philosophies of Devin and, you know, a lot of the stuff that you see Michael Todd doing, which is like super specific, you know, get that lift everybody does now. They squat down and they lift it up without moving. And like, so maybe that's really good for like one tiny fraction of the sport, which is a king's move. Fair enough. Fair enough. But if you have a fully functioning arm and you haven't put in decades of work to build like a super wide foundation like those two have done that, then that's probably where you shouldn't start. You probably shouldn't start by doing that, because you're sitting there going like, I can lift 100 pounds like this. And then somebody grabs you and just turns you under and smashes you because you don't have any functional strength at all, you know? So to try and kind of set up like, hey, this is actually how you train for arm wrestling. You can have your little tweaks here and there, like whatever. Everybody's going to be a little bit different. But then once you get real good, or once you get more advanced and you know exactly who you are, now start being specific. Or if you get really injured and all you can do is King's Move now, go do that. But yeah, like before that, if you're just a regular dude who can move in every direction he wants to move in, there needs to be some type of generalized understanding of how to train everything together and get stronger that way. I think that's what we're missing.
So are you going to put that together for us?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm the test subject, right? So I'm just going through this and hopefully I don't just blow up.
Yeah.
But like on the YouTube channel, I did post what I'm doing for a program for free. You can have it. I don't care. I'm not looking to make money off. Like the channel's not monetized. I'm not selling a program.
Right.
I'm just telling people this is what I'm doing. I'm not saying it's the best. I'm just saying it's what I'm doing right now. But yeah, I mean, that's the goal. The goal is to develop a library with weekly videos to see that thing didn't work or it did.
And this is still under the name of Hand Control or on something else?
No, Hand Control Worldwide.
Okay.
Yep.
You know, it's remarkable that John isn't completely old and gray after trying to teach me how to arm wrestle for the last 6 years.
I am going gray, Dave. What the hell are you talking about?
It's because you don't listen, Dave.
Yeah, I'm very slow. I'm a very slow learner. Although it's one more John Brown story. He'll tell you when he first started out, he didn't learn everything immediately either. In fact, after a couple of months, or once he got good, he was told, we really came very close to telling you to find another sport because he was so awful. But he probably caught on. So I think that's
look at you now.
I'll catch on eventually.
Yeah.
No, that's the absolute truth. So the first team I ever started with was Team Dungeon in Connecticut. So Ron Klemba, Tim Bresnan, they were my teammates right off the bat. And about a year or two after I started there, where I still wasn't great, but I was definitely a lot better than when I started. I remember Klemba told me at practice one day, "Yeah, I almost told you to just go find something else to do, but you kept showing up, and so I couldn't tell you to not come. And now look at you, you can actually win a match or two sometimes."
That's funny.
Is there anything specifically that you've added in that surprised you that has made a very big difference, like a certain exercise or a certain lift, and you've gone, "Oh, man, this is really giving me some big result"?
Yeah. I would say, so I have like a side pressure exercise to do it's corner to corner. So it's like the cable is set up in one corner and I'm trying to go to the other corner. So it's really like what I would call like a perfect angle of arm wrestling. Like if I'm going to pin somebody, I want to pin them on my side in my corner. That's perfect. So I started by doing that exercise with a 2-inch wrist wrench. It's just like basically a 2-inch piece of wood and going to the side with it. And I really liked it. It feels good. But to kind of challenge or give myself a little bit more variety, I ended up incorporating a 3-inch wrist wrench into it. And when I grabbed a hold of that and I was able to kind of start to move some real weight with that handle, when I started getting strapped up to people in practice, and even if they were to kind of put me on my palm a little bit, I felt like I could sweep and go. I'm like, oh, where did that come from? And it was pretty clear where it came from. And what was very interesting is like my 3-inch lift is about 10 pounds under my 2-inch wrist wrench. But I can tell you that if I put on weight into my 3-inch, my 2-inch goes up. Like they are very heavily contributing. And I feel like as that goes up, that's where I feel the biggest difference in training.
Amazing. That's fantastic that you've been able to implement these strategies and then seeing the results on the table, and the fact that people can go to your channel, they can see all these exercises you're doing, and you obviously updating everyone as to what's working for you, what isn't, and you're continuously refining the program down to a very specific thing as to, well, this is exactly the things that work best for me. And yeah, I think a lot of people would find a lot of use and a lot of benefit in that.
Yeah, and a very important training tool that I do not see enough of is fractional weight plates. So I have plates that go down to a quarter pound. They're quarter pound, half pound, 3/4 pound, 1 pound. And my main goal every time I do a max effort lift is to get a 1 pound PR. That's all I want. Because if I hit that lift once every 4 to 6 weeks and put 1 pound on every time I do it, you look back all of a sudden 8 months and you put on 11 pounds of pressure into that lift, which might not sound like a lot. But if you're started at 90 pounds and you have 11 and you gained 11, you're like, that's like 12% stronger. Like, that's significant. I think people don't understand, like, if you feel somebody in practice and they just feel like a wall, that might only be 5-10% difference in strength. It's not like this 50%, 100% difference in strength. Like it's not that far away.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always good when you get somebody who comes into the club for the first time and they've got a sort of a strength background, because they do tend to pick up things relatively quickly. There's two types of people that I've found that learn things very, very quickly. And one is the people with the strength background. The other one is people who come from a laboring sort of job. Where they're like an electrician or a plumber and they're always sort of turning stuff, fitters and turners or boiler makers or welders or that sort of thing, just always using their hands for 8 to 10 hours a day and just fine manipulation stuff. And then when they're on the table, it's like, they don't know the techniques or anything yet, but they've just got this relentless pressure that they just keep pushing with. And it's like, well, hang on a second, what do you do for a living? And they're like, oh, I'm a welder, I'm a builder, I'm this or that. And it's like, okay, yeah, I can feel that in your wrist, like just those years of small movements,
Yeah, there's nothing like, in my opinion, nothing like manual labor to make somebody strong. Like, there's a guy here in the States, in New York, Chris Michaels. He's 154 pound, but he has like a rock solid left hand. His right's good too, but his left is rock solid. He's a lumberjack, and he carries that chainsaw in his left hand. And he's told me before, he's like, that's all it is. That's the difference. Carry that thing all the time. It's just, it gets tougher. It just gets tougher and more resilient. And another group of people that do very well in the sport, it seems, are grapplers. Like wrestlers, that kind of. Yep. And like the wrestlers too, like they understand how to drill. They learn from a young age how to drill. So when you show them something, they understand how to repeat it, which is a very important thing, because like you just don't get good at something doing it a few times. You got to do it a lot. And they just get very good at drilling, and they get good at those motions back and forth. So I agree. So
do you recommend that someone who's not a lumberjack just carry around a chainsaw all day to get stronger?
I'm not beyond that.
Hey, it's working for him.
If it works, it works, Ryan. You know what I mean?
Well, it's Jerry Caderet. He said that, he developed a lot of strength in his wrist in that flop position because of his job. He was carrying like cement blocks or I can't remember what it was, bricks or something. And they would always be in that position. And all day he's carrying, weight from this area or over there to set up for the building job that they were doing. And just got really strong in this position. And obviously it's translated into his press over.
Yeah, and a guy who can bench press 315 for like 40 reps. I mean, like what the hell? Like, so I've trained with Jerry a few times, and I can tell you one thing that's always surprised me whenever I see Jerry training in practice. I've never seen him flop in practice. Yeah. He doesn't train. I've never seen him train it on the table ever.
That's interesting.
I don't know if he saves it for the big show, and maybe it might like really break him down when he does it. I'm not sure, but I've never seen him do it in practice.
Is he doing just like top rolling, hooking?
Yep.
Like, wow.
Yeah, and he'll press, but it's like, but it's like a turned in press. It's not flop.
That's
I
interesting.
guess he brings it out when someone has the strength to get him into that position.
Right. Yeah. And like I said, I mean, I know for me it probably wrecks him.
Yeah.
Like it probably stretches a lot of things out when he does that, it can't be easy on the elbow and the wrist.
It sucks when someone flops their wrist when you're not really expecting it. And you're like, fuck, now I'm stuck with this.
Ryan's shoulder's like, not again.
Yeah, right.
The bicep is falling out of the groove yet again.
Yeah.
You come to practice, Ryan, I'll put it back. You know what I mean?
Can you do that?
we can try. You need surgery anyway.
At Knuckles Up, every time I put my elbow on the pad, Sarah Bachman would run up and be like, no. She would not let me pull at the entire after pull. Rightfully
how long has it been?
Since the surgery?
Yeah.
Surgery was May 30th.
Yeah, that's not long enough.
Yeah, I told her, why should he, don't even bother. Why should he listen to you? He doesn't listen to the doctor. He had to fib up a storm when is your arm in a sling, constantly for how many weeks? Well, it was in a sling for a couple minutes, but big fibber.
Anyway.
Mm-hmm. You did get on the table although. Like 2 weeks after the surgery, you were on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little bit. I just want to see where I stood.
You stood in a sling, or you were supposed to.
Like I can like pull back towards me, no problem. It's the side pressure.
It's right the shoulder part that
goes right to the shoulder. Who would have thought?
We were talking about.
If you get anywhere within a couple hours driving time of Allentown, Pennsylvania, you are certainly welcome to join us and get this wisdom, firsthand. Every Sunday at 10 a.m., every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Message me. I'll give you the address. No charge. We just ask you to sign the waiver, and we even give you free water. So there.
There's no charge for you to give them the address.
Yeah.
Matt, how far of a flight is that for you?
I would be there in 6 days.
Perfect.
I'll leave now. Well, John, you were talking about different training methods that you've seen throughout clubs and different parts of the world. One thing that was interesting for me when I was talking to Todd Hutchings when he came down here for our event, AWE2, last year, was that he said that when they train at their club, there's no slow pulling at all. It is all like ready, go starts. Mm-hmm. And he said it's been like that the entire time. And he said, if you jump on the table with somebody, a third person will come and they'll referee for you and they'll set you up and you'll just practice, and you'll pull the entire session with ready, go starts. I was like, well, that's completely different to how we've done things.
Yeah, and that's different than how we do it too. Like we slow pull everything. And then at the end of practice, we do a king of the table. So like once everybody's super warmed up and beat down, everybody's probably at 60%. Then we do, except for Dave. Dave's at 100 at that point still. Yeah. But we
100% of mine is about 30% of John. But anyway, we're going.
but yeah, at the end of the practice is when we do king of the table, and sometimes we'll put like super specific rules on it where myself or one of our training partners, Damien, he's just an absolute tank. Will say he'll start or I'll start. I have to hold for 5 seconds, 5 rounds. Like, so no matter what, we'll go to 5 rounds, whether I lose or not, but I have to hold for 5 seconds before I can attempt a pin. Sometimes we don't do that at all. Sometimes we'll just say like, it's just straight up, you got to try to survive, but we'll do 8 rounds, like that kind of thing. But we're all so beat up that there's really no risk of injury and no risk of anything like that. I have floated the idea of almost having like, almost like a mock tournament where you just show up and we just put all of our names in a bracket and it's double elimination. And we just walk in, warm up real quick, and then just compete. And then we can practice after. But yeah, I mean, it's really good training. It's just, it can be very difficult on the body to do that. Because of that shock loading,
Especially you guys doing it twice a week.
Right.
Yeah, there are all the wandering around I've done. There are not that many groups that practice regularly twice a week. absolutely.
Yeah, not around here. That's for sure.
No.
Yeah, I think it's hard to sort of get the timing right as well. I mean, to have enough spacing out with the 7 days, you probably go a Sunday night and a Thursday night, maybe is the furthest away from each other you can do. But yeah, in terms of what we're doing in our clubs here, is it's a lot of slow pulling and a lot of we try to make it as fun as possible. So we don't tend to do a lot of drilling at all. It's just, you walk in, all the tables are ready to go, and you just jump on with someone. And if you're new or whatever, you'll get on with somebody who's more experienced, and they'll show you the ropes, and hopefully that you'll stick around. I think that's been one of the big things with us, is just trying to build the sport and get people, that anyone that turns up, it's like, please stay, please come back again. Like, we'll be really nice to you.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It is difficult to keep people, because it's such a painful sport. And then also, people really like to win. And like at first, it's just really tough. If you walk into a club that's a little experienced, you're gonna have a hell of a time finding someone that you can pin.
Yeah.
So usually, if we have somebody new, I tell them, find something that you love about this that's not winning, because that'll come, but you got to stick around long enough to get there. And if you're coming to practice every week or twice a week and going home super pissed off because you can't pin anybody, you're probably not going to stick around very long. Yeah. So it's like, just come have fun. Like, it'll be a fun experience. You just got to let yourself have fun without having to win right away.
Yeah.
And that's been pretty successful. And like, having more novice classes around here is good too, because, those new guys have a place to go and compete and at least be in the fight. Like when I started, it was most tournaments didn't have a novice, and there certainly wasn't any amateur. If they had a novice class, it was novice then open, and most tournaments were just straight up open. So I would just go and just get creamed, and then drive home on the way home going, I don't know why I'm even doing this, and then I go back to practice and just start over again.
I know that feeling. I was 0-12 in tournaments for my first 6 tournaments, were just straight up double eliminated.
Yeah, so my first year, I started in 2009, and a few of my teammates were going down to AAA Nationals in South Carolina here, and I lived in New Hampshire at the time, so it was about 20 hours. And I'm like, well, all the guys are going, I'll go. Like, why not? And I found out, they actually have a novice class at this Nationals. It's not a national title, but it's just at least a class. And I said, well, I've only been pulling for 5 months, so I'll go pull. Like, why not? I'm going to go anyway. So I ended up winning the class. It was my first win. And back in those days, if you won AAA Nationals novice, you were done with any kind of amateur novice class, period. You were now an open class. And I certainly was not an open class caliber puller. So I don't think I got another tournament win in the open class until 2011. So I think it was a couple of years where I just went whack, whack. And I just, here's my money. I'll keep trying again. So yeah, when I tell people have fun outside of winning, it's because I had to find a way to do it myself, because it was really difficult to be in pain all the time and then go to tournaments and just get killed and say why am I maybe this isn't for me. And then I remember getting one single win in a tournament in 2011, and I'm like, oh my God, all the losses are gone. This is the best thing that's ever happened.
You had a bit of a winning streak too, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, so 2014, I started becoming pretty successful. In 2013, I started having wins on pretty solid guys. So there was a guy, he's passed away now. His name is John Parton from Alaska. And he's an ex-world champ at WAF, really, really solid 176er. And we got tied up in 2013 at USAF Nationals. And I ended up beating him. And that was really one of the first times where people went, ooh, who is this guy? I think that year also, I think I beat at one point, I think it was that year, I beat Anthony Snook, who was another really good 176er in Pennsylvania. Yeah, I beat him left-handed. So that year I started kind of I was starting to touch pretty good guys. 2014 was a good year too, but then 2015, I won AAA Nationals. So I got my first national title in the open class then. And from like 2015 to 2017, I had a lot of good wins. So I had a few super matches. I think I was undefeated in the super matches from that period. And I beat Chris Gabi left-handed. I beat Ron Armini left-handed, who's a decent, a real decent 198 puller here. I beat a guy named Orrin Hubbard. He was I don't know if he pulls anymore, but he was Rob Vitchin Jr.'s training partner. I ended up beating him in a super match. And I ended up going out to LA and winning the LA Fit Expo, the California States. And I beat Vazgen for that. So like, that period of time was really good. And then my shoulder fell apart. So I had surgery, and then it took me a little bit to come back from that, but ended up being as good as before the surgery. And then COVID hit, and I stepped away for a bit, and then I got a new career, and then all of a sudden it was 3 years later, and I wasn't arm wrestling anymore. So now we're here.
Well, and I started a spreadsheet when I first started pulling, just to record if I ever got better, and of course I didn't. But currently my career totals are 57 wins and 818 losses, which to save you the math is a win percentage of 6.51%. On the other hand, I got to say those 57 wins are 57 more than Ryan has.
That is correct.
Go, coach! I love it, Dave.
Still at 0.
Are they all tournaments?
Practice.
Are they all from all tournaments, or is this?
That's anything. Basically tournaments. Anything. Yeah, we're not talking as long as it was a refereed match. Like I went to. They have this excellent Christmas party up at Granite Arms in New Hampshire, and I went to that a couple of years ago. And they have super matches there, which they just throw together. Josh Grant, pulls people to the table, whatever. And I didn't even know I was going to have one, but they dragged me to the table, and some young kid crushed me like 2-0. And I thought, well, hey, it's only fair. This is 2 losses. I should write this down. And so as long as it's a genuine refereed match like that, it's that or tournaments or super matches, whatever.
Wow, it's amazing you've kept track of it. So that's like 1,300 matches or something. Was that 800 losses? Oh, and 57, like I said, about 900.
57 and 818. I think I honestly can say that in the 7 years I've been doing this, I've been to over 1,000 practices. Because one time right before COVID hit, I was alternating either 4 or 5 a week. We had ours on Wednesday and Sunday. Philly at that time was Monday. Beast Mud was Thursday. And then there was a guy, Nitro's son, Jesse, ran a practice alternate Saturdays. And so if it was a Saturday where he was having it, I had 5 practices. Otherwise, I'd have 4.
So can you imagine doing 5 practices in a week?
Mm-hmm. My God, I wouldn't be able to pull after the third
one. Dave was trying to break my record.
Practice record?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Back in 2014 or 15, I can't remember. But I had done 7 in a row.
Wow.
7 days.
How'd that feel?
Bad. And then I remember, because I think, didn't, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Badger tell you that you were coming close to my record?
Well, and then what I did, in 2019, I had 11 practices in 10 days in 5 states. No, 10 practices in 11 days in 5 states. But that was 2019. I've also done, 4 within a 24-hour period, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I take silver medal to Dave.
Well, and not only that, but the thing, when the second tournament I ever went to, the guy said to me, "You realize you're pulling for third? There were only 3 of us in the class." And I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, they're only, you're pulling for third." So they wanted to give me this medal, and I said, "I went 0-2. I can't take that." And they said, bullshit. They said, hey, you stepped up to the table. Others could have. They didn't. Take the damn thing. So, hey, I take it. I don't brag about it, but I take it. And to be perfectly honest with enough of these master's classes, they're small classes, true story, I have more medals than I have career wins. Absolutely.
Hey man, you can't control who shows up, Dave.
Yeah. Hey, that's it.
What
course,
about
now
your
I'm
best
getting,
win?
getting out of it a lot now because I'm doing brackets for 98 for our tournament. So I show up and do brackets, and then I'm not running up my losses because I'm not, pulling in competition.
Are you ready for your upcoming match with Damon Ransom?
Oh, well, actually, I'm getting ready. I have a super match with David Abramson on Saturday up in, Party in North Jersey. That one's going to be a good one. Damon Ransom, if I lose that, I'm going to have to hide under a rock and retire. But, whatever.
They don't come back to practice.
I'm going to hold you to that.
Mm.
What about your best win, Dave, of those 57?
Oh, gosh. Just, I'd have to give that some thought. But I don't really know. I mean, some of the super matches that they actually won a couple of them, but I don't know that I really have a best win. Yeah.
Or your favorite moment in your arm wrestling career?
Here once again, I really don't know, because I think people a lot of times just your favorite win is somebody that either you beat somebody that was famous, or you beat somebody you really couldn't stand. That's a lot of people, that's their best win. And I was told years ago that my problem is I walk up to the table like I'm going to have fun. I have to walk up to the table like I'm going to kill this guy, and I just don't have the I'm going to kill this guy in me, I guess.
I think the highlight of Dave's career is measuring his areola on the 98 podcast.
Yeah. Ryan is exceptionally weird about some things, but
John, how did you go over in WAF?
I ended up getting 12th left and 16th right, I believe. So about
Still
middle
good,
of the
man.
pack, a little beyond middle for left, but around middle for right.
What was the wins and losses for that?
I don't think I won a match right. I won one left. I learned quite a bit left hand because I faced Spain first. I won that. Then I arm wrestled Georgia. This dude had an arm like 100 feet long and a huge hand. And I'm like, okay. So they say go, and I go to top roll, and he just turns me so far into a hook, and I bounce off this dude. And I'm like, oh, God. And they stopped the match, and they gave me a foul. And I'm like, cool. But I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to do with this guy? Like, I can't go anywhere near his arm. So I start really changing the way I'm gripping him. I'm really trying to run away from him, really run away. They say go again, and I had a really good start, but I kind of went this way, like way towards my opposite end, and ended up flattening out his hand to where I was actually in the match. Now he was able to contain me still and pin me, but he couldn't pin me in a hook. He kind of just swept to the side. But I realized then, that's when I really realized, okay, strength in the arm is a big, big deal to these guys. Their hands, I can deal with their hands. Their arms are special. And I also started to realize that even no matter how I'm going to set up, this guy's going to do the same thing. He has a plan, and that's what he's going to do. And it's going to work or it's not. And he's okay with that. So, in the States, if I change my angle, if I change my grip, if I change things, my opponent might change too. These guys were on a track. I'm going to do this. I'm going to win or I'm going to lose, period. And
they have a lane and they stay in their lane.
Yeah, he had a plan. He knew what he wanted to do. He knew where he was strong, and that's what he was going to do, period.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said about that. Because if you have one plan, and that's that, you're probably going to be as fast as you possibly can be.
Yeah. Because
there's no decision making. That's done. I decided back home what I'm going to do here. So there's certainly something to be said for that. And then I pulled Bulgaria, and we ended up slipping 3 times. I fouled, he fouled, I fouled. So loss.
Yeah.
But we both top rolled, and the hands were very similar. I would have loved to pull on the strap there. I mean, the Bulgarians are great in straps too, so I don't know how that would have went. But yeah, it was just such an eye-opening experience. me and Jeff, discussing it like at lunch and stuff, saying like, we're not that far off, but there is a difference here. Like something's different, and just really, it was super inspiring. And I really hope that someday the US can recognize the sport enough to at least help us out, getting athletes, getting coaches, or at least, at least subsidizing some of it.
Doctors.
Yeah, Dr. David Shell coming.
Barbers.
But I'm telling you, it would just be super cool to get that kind of respect. And like watching, so like none of those athletes even had to worry about when they were going up next. The coaches would take care of all that. It's just like you could see such a disconnect between the jobs. These guys, all they had to do, their job was to show up, warm up, and compete. And that's it. Everything else was taken care of, including protests. It's just like everything was taken care of.
So when they asked you who the coach of your team was, were you like, I'm the coach?
Yeah, I was like, none. They just like scratched.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You're either being too modest or your memory is failing, because you told us on the team phone chain that you won one each day, and I thought, you were 1 and 2 on both arms. I thought.
Yeah, I don't think I did win right hand.
I don't know.
We'll just say that you did.
Yeah, you reported.
Let's go with that, Dave. Why do you got to be such a downer, Dave?
Yeah, Dave. What the hell?
You did win.
But did they have like a no load setup? The guys that you went against, did you experience that? Where they just have no
I didn't
pressure?
feel any load. I didn't feel any loading at all, and I'm pretty used to that. When I was in Team Dungeon, we did all no load, so I was pretty used to it. Luckily, because if you're not used to that, they don't load. I didn't feel one bit of loading there. And I was okay with it, but it's like, okay, we're gonna go now. When they say go, we're going.
Yeah. Did you have to adjust? Like if you're doing a match where they do allow you to load, is your setup differently to when it is a position where it's very strict and your opponent's no loading? Are you doing the same thing, or is if you're in a looser rule situation, do you adjust to that as well?
Yeah. So the only time I'll ever really load with my opponent is if I go to load and I can feel their hand buckle, I'll load. Whatever you want to do, man. But if I grab a hold of you and I'm not sure, or if I give like a little bit of pressure and I don't feel anything move, we're not loading. I don't risk it. Loose or not, I don't care. Like it doesn't matter the rule set for me there. My goal is just when they say go, is to pop. And for me, it's really tough to pop when you're 60% engaged already,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it is interesting that there's different styles out there, and then when you run across somebody that does do the no load and you're not used to it, it is so weird because you think, oh, this guy's I can get everything here. This is amazing. I can get what I want, and the load, yeah, I'm ready to go. I've got everything I need here, and then all of a sudden,
yeah, the guys that are training sometimes like they'll grip up with me and say, oh, I'm not intimidated at all, and I'm like, yeah, you don't need to be until they say go. When they say go and your hand's against the pad, that's when you can feel intimidated. But
that's the worst when you get flash pinned.
Yeah, the only time I myself will load, regardless of if I think they're strong or not, is in the final. If I'm in the finals, because like at that point I'm not saving energy anymore, and I might need all my energy to, like, if this guy's stronger than me and if I dead load into a wall if I can make it to the final, that's when I'll really start to put the pressure on, because I don't need to stay fresh for this. Like, we're going to give it all here.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you had somebody that just had a really crafty or sneaky setup that you weren't expecting?
Oh, man. Not so much. So Ron Klemba kind of raised me in the sport, and he was like the ultimate like crafty guy. Like he was the guy who crafted his way into a lot of victories. He was a very strong guy, but he would trick a lot of people. So my entire upbringing in training was around that. So one thing I did have when I was coming up in the sport that was difficult was he was my weight class. He was 176 pounds, and so was I. So this was the guy. And like, it very quickly became in my brain, every 176 open class guy is like this. So I was terrified of everybody. And then you start to feel people, and you beat somebody in the class, and you go, oh wait, he's the guy. They're not all the guy. But like, I can tell you for a little while, I felt like everybody was. But the craftiness and all his tricks, and he was he is very aggressive in training. It started to make it kind of feel like, well, if you can get any kind of success in the training room here, you're going to be fine in the tournament. Like, nobody's going to trick you there, and nobody's going to be any more aggressive there. So if I had to say like somebody who could really, especially early on, trick me, it was him. Because we used to compete together, and we'd be, even when I was good, it was first and second. I never beat the guy.
What sort of tricky moves would he do in his setup?
So 1, really good dead load. 2, super fast, like really good timing. And 3, he did it to super heavyweights even. His side pressure, he would just go straight side. And it was with no wrist curl, no pronation, nothing. It was straight through the palm on the bottom of the palm. So he would set up almost like super open like this. And they would say go, and he would just push straight into the pad. It would work. It was like magic. And like, so like, it's almost like the most non-technical move, but it works so well. Like, you can't deny that it was technically perfect, you know? So that always frustrated me, especially early on. He didn't do that to me later on when I was strong enough and I knew what I was doing, and I knew him. But early on, that was so frustrating because you try to hook it or you try to top roll, you just be pinned as soon as you try anything. And it's like, great, I didn't even get to try. And you go, yeah, that's the point. That's the point. I don't want you to have to try.
Wow. So he's basically just side pressuring you straight to the bat.
Yeah, right through the bottom of the palm, like through here. It's like no trying to get nothing. Just ready to go. Just straight this side. It would hurt so bad. It would hurt so through through your humerus. It would hurt. You go, oh my god.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got one thing that people like to do with our club to troll others is like they'll deliberately flop their wrist back and forth, like as you're going down, but then you come back up to the middle and you go down, you come back up. So they're getting resistance, no resistance, resistance, no resistance. Like it's
right. John can spot sneakiness 20 feet away. One match that I still talk about, one of my few wins, was we were at the New Englands some years ago, and John is refereeing, but he was not refereeing that match. But he's behind. I can watch him, and he's going like this, with telling me to get higher. And I thought he's telling me to get higher. Well, no, what he had noticed is my opponent, who was on my own team, by the way, had slipped his hand under his elbow when they were strapping us up, and I didn't notice it. The ref didn't notice it, and then he just slipped it out. So he's getting the height there. John noticed it from 20 feet away. I didn't see it, but I still won that match. And so I'm still telling the teammate that I will not name here that I still beat you, even though we're getting sneaky there.
My favorite moment of sneakiness was at our club. A guy called Tim versus a guy called Lass. Lass was trying to pin, and he had his head turned completely away from the table, and he was sort of half underneath it, in that final pin position. He had no idea what was going on the table. Tim had actually lifted his elbow off, and he had his elbow on Lass's pad. He was sitting just with his elbow up on Lass's pad, and Lass is trying with everything he's got. Because he's not looking back, he had no idea that Tim had got his elbow on his opponent's pad.
That's awesome. That
was great.
Yeah, there are times still at practice today where I'll be setting up with somebody on King of the Table, and I'll tell them what they're gonna do, and they hate it because it's experience, right? Like they don't see what they're doing, but like any experienced arm wrestler can see it from a mile away. So like we went through King of the Table once, and the first round, this guy, he tried to hook me, and like I think I caught him and I pinned him in a hook, The second time he came up, I said, "Oh, he's gonna try and top roll me," and he lets me go. He's like, "How the fuck did you know that? Like, how the hell did you like?" It's like, dude, it's not that like he's like sitting up super high. Like, it's not that hard to see, dude. But yeah, it's fun to have a little bit of experience and then be able to read minds to some of the guys coming up. But that's how it felt like back then. It felt like, how the hell does this guy know what I'm doing? And it's like, yeah, because it's the most obvious thing ever.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing.
One of John's favorite things at practice is when he'll post, he'll do the up pressure and see if if I'm not paying attention, he'll lift my elbow off the pad. And then he starts laughing.
Yeah, I need to know, like, so if I think Dave is slacking in his training, we'll strap up and I'll just post straight back. And if I can lift his elbow off the pad, then he needs to go home. He needs to go home.
What do you think about when you're looking at big events like the East versus West and stuff like that, with these setups, like say the manipulations that someone like Devin Larratt is doing, to get the best possible position to start in? Are you a fan of that? Are you not? Are you against that? You would prefer it to be tighter?
I don't mind it. And the reason I don't really mind it so much is that a lot of the manipulation is because his opponent is just allowing it to happen. And a lot of it's through frustration, because it's frustrating to be the other guy. And a lot of it is because the other guy, for the most part, with the guys who Devin pulls, they know that they can't sit there forever and do this because they're going to be exhausted, and Devin won't be. But if you look at some other matches that Devin specifically has been in, with like Dennis left-handed is a good example. Dennis didn't play those games. He didn't allow those games to be played. And it was at PAL, so it was a lot tighter rules there. But you could just tell it wasn't even a rule thing. Dennis was not going to engage the games. He just wasn't going to do it. So I don't necessarily mind the manipulation, because the manipulation only occurs because you're able to be manipulated, which is an interesting, it's difficult to not be malleable like that, but it really is on the opponent. Because if you play your cards right, the match has to go eventually. And if if people aren't being, or like, will not be fouled out, period, now we need to start looking at the organization, the referees, the rules. Like, what are we doing here? We can't just let this happen, right? But if you're an opponent who just, you're not going to manipulate the match with me, I don't think it'd be much of a problem. It's just it's able to happen.
Yeah, why do you think Dennis was so successful with that? I mean, it just felt like watching it, he just put his hand there and just let Devin, wave it around and pin it and do all this stuff. And he was like, I'm not going to give you any resistance, like, until it's time to go.
I honestly think it's just a mental strength. I honestly think it's a mentality. Because even when Devin pulled Pushkar, years and years ago, Devin won the match, but there wasn't much gamemanship when it came to that kind of thing. I just think there's a mentality that I'm here to do this, and you're not gonna move me off my tracks. And I honestly, I also do not think that there's all of the. You can see a lot of anxiety in a lot of arm wrestlers, like, for good reason. It's a competition and it means a lot, but you don't see that in a lot of the Eastern Europeans. When Pushkar was alive, you saw intensity, but you didn't see a guy who was like nervous or anxious. You never do with Dennis either. And Dennis is just like cool, calm, and collected, period. But I think they have a really good game plan, and they have a lot of confidence in their power. If I can get to the right place, I'm going to win this match, and I'm not going to play the game. And so they don't.
Oh, that's fair. Absolutely. What about for yourself, John? Your favorite moment in your arm wrestling career?
Oh, favorite moment.
Or one of? Yeah.
So I will say that it was a big moment for me to win the 2017 California States at the LA Fit Expo. So the reason why it was such a big deal for me at that time, well, actually, Yeah, I'll do this one, then I'll do number 2. So 2017 was definitely a big deal. So I had pulled Orrin Hubbard in at the New England Championships like 8 weeks before, and I had severely damaged my left elbow. Like, I don't know what happened still to this day. I didn't go to a doctor or anything, but like the next day I was black and blue from here to here. Like, it was literally all the way down my arm. Like, I really messed up that bad. So I went home, I flew back to Minnesota. I don't think I could even like straighten my arm for 2 weeks. I got on the table, like did like super light everything for another 2 weeks. So now we're 4 weeks in. And then in 4 weeks I had to do the LA Fit Expo. So I showed up and I ended up pulling 2 weight classes, 165 and 185. I think I either got third or fourth 85. I think I got third because I think I got a little bit of money for it. And I ended up winning the 65s against Vazgen. And Vazgen had beat me in the tournament, and I had to beat him twice in the final.
Wow.
And I was severely damaged, like bad. So I have a video of it. It was either the final match or the second to final match. He hits me sideways with like a dead wrist, and my arm goes through, and it stops, and it goes click. And it was my elbow sliding, like the joint.
Oh.
Yeah. So being able to walk away from that successful, for me personally, was a big deal because it kind of made me feel like it doesn't really matter what position I'm in physically. I can win any tournament I want. Like, that's kind of how I felt. Like, it might be a struggle, and I might have to walk through hell to get through this because it's going to be painful, but I think I can do it still. So that was a big moment for me. And then part 2 of that was I had shoulder surgery like 7 months later. And the rehab for that coming back was terrible. Like, Brian can tell you how bad it is, but they told me my career was over. I had to have I had full labrum reattachment. The entirety of it was torn away from the body. And then I had to have my bicep tendon moved down because that had frayed from trying to hold my shoulder joint together. So they told me, like, your career's over. You're probably going to not be able to reach the top shelf of a cupboard. Like, that's where we're going to end up with this, you know? So I'm like, yeah, that's not happening. So as you can tell, they were wrong. I can raise my arm just fine. But my goal was to make it back to the LA Fit Expo and at least place. And if I could do that, then I knew that I could, you know, keep my career going. So in 2020, right before COVID, I went out there and I took third right and second left. Wow. So Marlon Hicks from Canada beat me left-handed, but I was thrilled. I was like, all right, we're back. And then then COVID hit and kind of derailed everything. But yeah, those would definitely be my 2 favorites.
What about when you lined up against Vazgen? Was it nerves? Was it intimidation? Or were you just, your head was like, I'm going to try my best and try to win no matter what?
Oh, no. I remember walking up going like, oh, it's Vazgen. Like, this is, I never thought I'd really be here. And then we went to the straps, and he beat me. And I went, that guy is good. Like, I remember just thinking to myself, he's really, really good, but I'm definitely in it. Like, I'm in it. So then when I made it back to the finals with him, and that kind of went back to that whole, like, you know, dead load versus load. I was in the finals. It's all over. So I just need to make this guy tired. I knew if I could make him tired, I can beat him. I kind of feel like that with anybody. So I ended up getting a good stop, and he couldn't pin me. And it just went on and went on and went on. And then I ended up pinning him. And I said, you can't do it again. There's no way. And he was still super strong in the final match too. But yeah, luckily it swung in my favor.
What was the feeling like when you got that pin?
Oh, really good. It was a really good feeling. But yeah, you always picture yourself being across the table from certain people. And oftentimes you get that chance eventually and they just destroy you. It's a really, really, that first time you're across the table from somebody who you really look up to, and you're at least in the match, it changes a lot of things. You don't have to win. You don't even have to win. As long as you know you're in that match, it definitely changes things in you, where you start, or it did for me. where I started to say like, oh, I think I'm actually a part of this group now. Like I was so bad at the start. I think I might actually be able to do this if I keep trying. So
it's reconfirmed all that hard work and discipline and sacrifice that you've put in over time, and you've raised yourself to that level. And that was like the moment that you sort of discovered that you've actually arrived.
yeah, I was like, well, sitting in my car after a gym session, like just sitting there like this, trying to get the courage to raise my arms to the steering wheel, like, or sleeping in a bed on my back with 2 pillows underneath each arm, going like, I don't know how to get rid of this. Like, I don't know how to get away from this pain. Yeah, when those moments happen, it's like, oh, okay, it was all worth it. Yeah.
The toothache pain.
Yeah. Awful.
Oh, yeah, it's a horrible thing to experience. I have that. If I do more than one session in a week, that's where I get it.
How long you've been pulling?
5 and a bit years.
Okay, yeah. I mean, yeah. If you push hard enough, no matter how long you arm wrestle, you'll find that. So don't feel too bad.
I felt terrible when we went over to India last year, and we had a match on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday they took us around to one of the local clubs, and all these people had turned up, to meet Ryan Bowen basically, and I was standing there also, but they wanted to get on the table with you, the whole, like, all these people, oh, get on table, and it's like, after I think the third person, like, I started getting that toothache pain in my bicep, and I was like, oh my god, I can't do this anymore. And there's like all these people, like, can we get on the table with you? I'm like, no, go away.
I'm gonna go sit in the bathroom for 30 minutes and see if it goes away.
Absolutely. So what's the plans for the future? This year, you got anything lined up in terms of matches or tournaments?
No, I have nothing else lined up this year. I might hit the tournament here or there, but I don't have anything planned. My big plan right now is to just train like crazy. And from May to August, I was basically eating like a bird to be 165 pounds. So like as soon as I got back from Worlds, I'm like, I'm eating anything I want as much as I want. So I just been training really hard and eating everything and just enjoying life. So yeah, I'm going to do that for at least 3 months, kind of reevaluate how the program went, what tweaks it needs, and then who knows. But yeah, I might drop in a tournament here or there by surprise. I don't really take too much time off, so dropping into a tournament is not really much of a problem.
Yeah, what's your weight sitting at the moment?
I'm waking up at like 172, 173. So like 78 kilos, 78 and a half.
Nice.
Not bad.
So that's the plan. Like, stick around the 165 class, or be close enough to it that you can get to it without too much struggle.
Yeah, I mean it's nice to be able to do that. My long-term goal. So I'm 38 now. In 2 years, I'd like to go back to WAF as a master. So I'll be 40, and I want to do open and masters. They do masters first, so that would be my biggest goal. But so they do that first. I definitely be okay to go in the open, but there is no 75 kilos for masters. It's 70 or 80. Oh. So the next couple of years, I really like to slowly become like a full 176. I do not put on muscle worth the shit. Like, no matter, I'm just not genetically, that's not my thing. So I want to like really put in some long-term effort into gaining like some solid muscle. And it'll probably take me a couple of years to do it.
Well, I mean, the fun thing is that you're doing this different style of training now, and you're going to be able to find what works for you, what doesn't work for you. And, with putting it out on your channel, everyone else sort of gets to follow that journey along with you and then see what you're doing. And I'm sure that you'll find different moments or different exercises that it's like, oh, this is giving me like this next level results, and all of a sudden, you're leveling up, and then it's like maybe you're plateauing again for a little while, and then you find another thing that pushes you to that next level. But it's always fun to see somebody be able to do that with their Jesus.
You okay, Ryan?
What was that?
I don't know, somebody's phone maybe.
Is that a phone?
I think so. Was it yours? I think it was yours.
No.
No? Okay. It was
Dave.
like the turnaround.
Wasn't
Was that
me.
Never-Ending Story? Never-Ending Story song. That's fantastic. No, well, Ryan, we've
No, it's not
posed it. Oh,
Not my fault.
you did start to snore, Ryan. So maybe you set up a
That was my
a
it's
treat.
my alarm. It wakes me up on the podcast.
Yeah.
You hear that?
It's triggered to activate when you start to snore.
yeah.
Yeah, well, we're just saying. So for John, obviously checking out your channel and then being able to see all the training methods and everything that you're going through and the results that you're finding with the different exercises and everything like that, I think it's fantastic. There is so much confusion out there in terms of for people that when they start arm wrestling and they say, well, what can I do to get, like, what sort of exercises are there? And I very briefly will run through pronation and cupping and wrist flexing and wrist curls and stuff like that. But obviously there's an entire world of that, which is what you're sort of discovering at the moment.
Yeah, and like all my equipment is homemade, so like everything is like I'm kind of a weirdo like that. Dave will attest. Like most of the time I'm barefoot most days. I never wear like full shoes. I'm kind of like a weird hippie kind of guy. Like all of my equipment is literally I just built it like out of like spare wood that I had. Like it's all pulley systems and stuff. But like I guess I'm trying to say, like, if I can do it, anybody can. Like if you have a table and a few bucks, you can put together equipment where you can train every single day in a lot of different angles and get some real good work in. So it's not limited by like if we don't have a bunch of fancy equipment and stuff too. But yeah, the goal is, I'm hoping to look back every 3 to 6 months and be like, man, I was training like really stupid back then, or at least like have something to like improve and fix that has some kind of evidence behind it as to why you should fix it. That's the goal. The sport's so young that I think there's just a lot of growth for it.
Yeah, I think it's what makes it interesting at this point in time. It feels very much like it's just breaking out of that grassroots style, and we still are yet to see it in its final form. I think there's still going to be changes to the way that arm wrestling happens in terms of rule sets, in terms of table structure, in terms of the way that people train. I think that in a big sort of transitionary period where people are trying lots of different things and finding what is the ultimate method to getting the best out of your training and the best results you can on the table.
Yeah, and especially like right now where we have all this influx of audience, right? Like that's the one thing that COVID did bring us was a lot of people, right? So now you have all these people coming in asking all these questions, and a lot of the questions we're having a hard time answering perfectly because we just weren't prepared for it. And a lot of the guys who have the the quote unquote answers have been pulling so long that you almost pull long enough where you forget the answers because everything is just it's so second nature to us. You actually forget how to be a newbie, and you can only really train a new person if you like really understand what it feels like to be that. And if you haven't been that in 30 years, it's tough.
Back then they were secretive with their training methods. Now it's all over the internet.
Yeah, well, when I started, it was if you train more than once a week, you'll die, and everything should be like 50 sets of 1,000 set, 50 reps, and it's like, yeah, we've come a little bit a long way since then. But like when I started, it was very much like that. It was everybody was just like all hail John Brzenk in his training methodology, which was barely trained at all. It worked great for him, but not for me.
Yeah. Dave Shubidge in the comments has said, John's thoughts on the Arm Breaker 3000.
Oh, good.
That's the thing that's a real crusher when you show up at the tournament and you're facing John and you get beat by this guy who's wearing sandals with a daisy flower tattoo on his instep.
Does he have a hacky sack, though? That's the important question.
I don't.
No. We'll have to get you one.
Never go full hippie.
It's a sack not being hacked.
Absolutely. Yeah. What the Armbreaker 3000 thing? I think is that
that's Andrew Wood's fucking.
That's the thing that Andrew Wood has designed.
High pressure machine or
nut job from Austin.
Yeah.
Yeah. No idea.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine.
Don't break your arm. I do
Notice that.
suggest you don't break your arm.
That's
If
a
I
good
could
Yeah,
give one piece of
at least
advice.
you your bicep reattached in a better position.
Heard it here
I just broke
first.
my humerus. It didn't affect the muscle, tendon, or nerves at all. I didn't get any advantage except, I can't break that arm in again because I have the damn metal in there. But other than that, hey, they didn't have to reattach anything.
Yeah.
No.
What do you think about the age limit for masters, 40 plus? When you look at, say, the top guys in the world, and they're probably all 40 plus.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, let's be super honest about it. We're not talking about a out of the box 40 years old. We're talking about maybe some hormone therapy, maybe, right? So that certainly changes quite a bit of things. But even in that respect, like, I'm going to be 40 within a couple of years. Knock on wood. But like right now, I can train really, really hard and make significant gains.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like I'm at like a disadvantage in the open class. Like, I don't feel like, oh my God, I'm 2 years from aging out of the open class. I don't. So, conversations about bumping the masters class up, I'd be open to that. I mean, I don't think 40 is all that old. Like, when you're 21, you think 40 is super old. 40 is not that old. I'm almost there. But yeah, the top guys being, closer to 50 or even some guys 60.
Yeah,
That's
Matt's
happening with
Matt's
quite
almost
a bit of
50.
help.
Matt's not far off from 50, so he knows.
Yeah,
He knows.
that's right. I'm sort of like that number that's really far away that looks like it's close. I'm 42, but yeah, it does. When I found out about the masters class, it was only a month ago or something. One of the guys was talking about traveling, and then he said, "Oh, there's a WAF tournament or whatever," and they go, "Oh, he's got this masters class." I was like, "How old? What's the age limit?" He says 40. I'm like, I'm 42. I could go in that class. That's
Yeah, right.
doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever. If it's there and it's available, why not?
Was there any
There's certainly no shame in going in the masters class. It's a personal preference, and some guys just won't, and that's cool.
shit in our area? You might run into Paul Lynn in the Masters or something.
Right. Well, that's the thing,
know,
right?
like,
So
There's
But,
guys that are that age that you're like, oh shit, like, I don't
Yeah,
want to be in the Masters.
there's certainly no shame in going to the Masters, but two, there's plenty of guys in the Masters that can absolutely win open. There's no doubt, and like that's why I would love to do both at a Worlds. Just give me both. I think that'd be super cool.
Yeah.
Well, and
But
word
they
on
have
the
that-
street. Word on the street at the IFA Worlds that I was at in Orlando in 21 was that one of the guys in Masters was in Masters because he knew they didn't drug test Masters, just open. Not mentioning names here, of course, but
Was there any talk over there about any like stuff with the bands and WAF and all that stuff? Did anybody I know the Bulgarians are in some trouble over there.
Yeah, I didn't hear any discussion about it whatsoever.
Yeah.
I didn't hear a word.
Did you try it? Did you spread some rumors for us?
Yeah.
Ryan was messaging me things to say, but I didn't. I took the high road.
I sent John my new mask to bring with him. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, you got a new one.
My
That's the England one. That's hilarious. Is that one of those sock pullover ones?
Yeah. It'll be on Friday. Don't worry.
Well, you fell asleep in the Kanye one the other day.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because
I don't want to.
The position you ended up in was like half of this, and it just looked like a dead Kanye.
No, it's this one.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too much into that because we don't want John to get banned or shunned upon.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Well, it can happen. Maybe being on the show is not the best move for your arm wrestling career.
I promised I would bring this up, John, and maybe you know this. When because you had to certify to ref at that WAF Nationals, right?
I did not certify, but I didn't ref.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
Did Megan?
Yeah.
So did she have to were there any prerequisites, or was it just like a certification for that particular tournament?
No, you had to take a class. You had to
Okay.
sit through you had to sit through a seminar, and then you had to get tested.
Gotcha.
So they run. There's like a almost like a live test.
Yeah, because someone asked me how to get certified for WAF, and I only know how to get certified for IFA. So I was like, I don't know, dude. You're gonna have to look into it. But apparently they said he had to like get some sort of certification elsewhere first, or be recognized in some other league before you could. But I don't know if that's true, because I know they were certifying a lot of people for that nationals.
Yeah, I don't know specifically.
Yeah.
I know for WAF to be able to become a certain level of referee, you have to actually go to Worlds and test there.
Yeah. Same with IFA for the upper levels.
Oh, really? Good. Well, I think that's good. Honestly, I mean, it's a pain in the ass, but
Yeah.
I have no problem with it. Like if you're gonna be a referee at a world championship, that's kind of how it should go.
It sucks though. Now they're starting to ban people depending on what ref was at the fucking event. Like it's starting to.
Is that right?
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. Like Knuckles Up, for instance, like couldn't have certain athletes if they had a WAF ref, and they're like, it doesn't matter what ref we have because we have our own rule set. We're not IFA and we're not WAF. We're our own rules, and still it depends on who the person actually is.
We had a question here. We had a question whether you track your workouts on an app. As I recall, you basically just use your own spreadsheet sort of thing, or
And
Yeah, I
what's
just have a
John
notebook.
Brown's credit score?
notebook. Yeah, you're not using an app as such.
No, I have a notebook. I just track every set in my notebook. I have like two big whiteboards that I have just like my records on.
Well, there's a lot of John Brown
that's
comments. Holy moly. Is John Brown an accountant?
No, I could be for the right price.
Right, there you go.
Can John Brown fix my computer?
Dave Shell is.
Yeah, I could do
Dave
that, but I
Shell
won't.
Definitely do your taxes.
There you go. Oh, yeah. Was it Andrew Yak? Is that who it is? Yakovic?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yakovic.
Oh, yeah. He's trolling in the comments there.
Of course.
I knew he tracked his workouts, nerd. Oh, that's great. It was
That's
good when you
probably why he's a better arm wrestler than you.
There might be a correlation there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
What about do you have anyone that you look up to in the sport, or any heroes or idols? It's harder when you start getting up towards those elite levels. Maybe that's not as much of a thing. But when you started, was it something that you looked at somebody's technique or their persona and was like, I love that dude, he's awesome?
Yeah. So like coming up in the sport, my teammates Ron Klemba and Tim Bresden really like. So when I first came in the sport, Tim Bresden went to the Arnold Classic, and I don't know if he won that year, but I know he beat Brzezinski that year at the Arnold. And then all of a sudden he comes in the next week and I'm in front of him. And he's treating me like we're brothers. Like he's the nicest guy in the world.
Again. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, like this guy, like he's that good at what he does. And I'm just my first week here and he's treating me like I have value here. So like instantly, like, those kind of guys are who I really looked up to. And I still do. I think I try to be the same way at practice.
Yeah.
But guys like Norm Devio, he's an older gentleman in the Northeast. He might be in his 80s now. Dave, do you know how old Norm is?
Either 83 or 84, depending on his birthday.
Yeah, and when I first got in, so he was, in his late 60s. He was crushing the 154 still, like open class. It wasn't even close. Like nobody could touch him.
Wow. He's still doing well.
Yeah, and I have exactly one win over him in tournament.
Nice.
And we pulled probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. I have one win.
Wow.
And he was just that good. And I remember just thinking to myself, this guy, like, he told me or he didn't tell me. He wrote it on the Northeast message board. It was like the original Facebook for arm wrestling. Somebody posted there asking the Masters guys, like, what do you guys do to stay healthy and stay motivated as you get older? And he posted, I've never drank a full beer. I only drink milk and water. I do like 300 or 400 sit-ups, push-ups, and pull-ups a day. I make sure I make it to practice at least once a week. Some people might think that's boring, but my wife doesn't. And I just said, man, that guy is so cool. I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And I remember watching a video that Gary Roberts put out. I think it was 2009 or 2010, where he was traveling the Northeast and like going to people's practices and like documenting all this stuff. And he went to Norm's house. And Norm brought him downstairs in the basement and said, this is where I do my pull-ups and all this stuff. And he grabs the pull-up bar and he pulls himself up and he lets go with his other hand. And he goes, I just sit here and I just hang for a while. And he's talking to Gary. And Gary goes, how long do you do this for? He goes, oh, a long time. And like he's sitting there holding himself up and having this conversation. He goes, yeah, when I get tired, I just grab with the other hand and I just let go with this one. I just shake it out. And he's just like, he's up in the air this whole time.
That's
and I'm
awesome.
like, man, if there's anything in this world to look up to, if you're looking at strength, that's the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, until recently, he did not pull masters ever. He pulled open. And I said to him once, I thought since he was like, 154-ish, I thought a lot of times masters splits at 199. And I thought, well, and I asked him, is it because of that? Did he be at too much of a weight disadvantage? And he said, no, I just never like pulling the old guys. I'd rather pull open.
Yeah.
It's a drug testing.
While he was in his 70s.
Yeah. Use him for the drug testing.
Once he doubled the Masters age, he decided to pull Masters, I guess.
Like he just eats spinach.
Yeah.
It's crazy how strong the elite guys are. Like, just the levels that it can get to is absolutely insane. I remember doing it was a preacher curl, a plate loaded preacher curl in the gym, and I got with two hands. I got 80 kilos, which is 176 pounds, and I was very happy with that. And I sent it. I had a video of it. I sent it to Ryan Bowen. And he didn't write anything, but he sent a video back of Dave Chafee doing that with one arm multiple times while he's casually talking to somebody else. And I was like, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's silly, man. Yeah.
That was nice of him.
That was great. It's great motivation. I just was like, yeah, okay. Well, I guess I'll stop here. And I struggled to get that as well. And Dave was doing it like he was literally talking to the interviewer while he was just, repping it out over and over.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, we're about to hit the 2-hour mark. So
Really?
I know Matt's got something he's got to get to. So I don't want to make him late for that. But John, thank you so much for coming on. And I think you've given a lot of stuff for people to really think about. And I think people are probably going to run over and watch your videos now and see what you're doing for training.
Well, they go up all the time.
Yeah.
And I always, every 3 months, I always post like where I started and where I ended with numbers and the percentages that I increased.
Nice.
And the programs I run are free. And I just post them. You don't have to run them. You don't have to do anything. But I'm not going to sell anything. I'm not looking to make money.
Worldwide?
Hand control worldwide. Yep. And all the old podcasts are still up too. The old podcasts are still there. Some of them are pretty interesting because it was back in the WAL days and that kind of stuff. Is
the website still up?
No.
Okay.
No.
I know, like when I started, I think it was still up because there was still like information on there and routines and.
Yep. Yeah, I used to have like downloadable Excel sheets. You could run programs on.
I downloaded a bunch of them when I first started.
Yeah, this is not the first time I've tried, but I think just with experience and like just researching more and learning more and talking to more people, like I think that I'm just in a better place to try and do this now.
Awesome.
Yeah, when I got my recent computer, I was talking about, do people really use these 1 terabyte, that you need 1 terabyte? John said, I have a 2 terabyte, and it's pretty well full because of all the old videos and everything.
Yeah, I used to back up all the old video podcasts. Yeah, they're still up on YouTube. They're pretty cool. It's funny to go back and look and to see like what the politics and the stuff were at the time of the sport. It was just so much smaller back then. And
yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting
That's
stuff.
cool. Well, hey, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate your time, and we'll definitely keep an eye on what you're doing.
We need a
Cool, man.
bicep pose
Yes,
before
sir.
we
Yeah,
sign
we'll
out.
just put a bicep pose
Double.
before we end.
Double bicep poses.
Oh, you want
Alright.
I
one?
can't lift my arm up enough to
let's
do
I
it.
do charge for those. You can have the program for free.
Yeah.
but-
Yeah, you're not
There
going
you
to
go.
want me.
Oh, man.
Mhm.
Ding.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, and I'll see you later.
Later, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Arm wrestling science. Arm wrestling science. Science for